right, we are here and starting the Candid conversation about systemic racism. We might wait a few minutes till we have some attendees arrive. But if you're watching us on Facebook, please feel free to post a comment in the chat that you're here and where you're, whoops, lost my earring, where you're watching us from. 1 second. Okay. Hello, I welcome those of you who are just arriving in the webinar. Glad you're here. Please feel free to put in the comments where you're calling in from. We'll start shortly. We are live streaming into my homepage on Facebook, and we are also going to, as usual, post the webinars onto my YouTube channel. I'm Misha Safran. But we look forward to connecting with all of you as you arrive here in the webinar or on Facebook. We'll start in just a couple of minutes. Welcome, welcome. Please feel free to let us know you're here and maybe how you found out about the webinar. If you've watched any of the previous episodes, that sounds weird. If you've watched any of the previous conversations, but we're happy to just welcome you here into the space. And we'll start shortly. Again, if you're watching and you may not have seen in the comments, please introduce yourself and let us know where you are watching from. If you are here in the actual webinar, feel free to say hello and tell us what state or country you're in. I'd like to just welcome you here. It is our practice not to say people's names as we welcome you in. So if you say, I'm from Orlando, Florida, we'll just say, oh, great, we have somebody here from Orlando, Florida. We won't be actually saying, hey, it's John Doe or Joanne Doe. But yeah, we'd love to know for our own purposes, how far reached our webinar is and how you found out about us, what you're hoping to gain, maybe even would be great. Tonight's an unusual night as we do not have a panelist, but Jodi and I have decided that in light of the recent shooting, hate crime, I would like to call it, in New York, that we kind of shifted our focus for tonight. So please feel free to let us know what brought you, what you would like to gain from this evening. And we do want to flex with you as well. So if you have thoughts, feelings, or want your voice heard around racism, hate, and violence, we welcome those comments. Yeah.
Excuse me.
Uh-oh. Yes, please don't choke. Go ahead, drink your water.
Sorry about that, everyone. Good evening. I'm Jodi Lewis, and so I'm glad to have you here either on the webinar or watching via Facebook or even later on Misha's YouTube channel. And we're going to do something a little different, but with the shooting that happened in New York, and that it is looking at 2 years since George Floyd was murdered, and now we have the mass shooting and murder of Black individuals in Buffalo. We really want to take the time tonight to really hold space for anyone to be here and be held regarding that shooting, and open it up for discussion about how people are feeling and kind of what people's thoughts are about where do we go from here, given that 2 years ago we saw George Floyd being murdered by a police officer, and it was just yesterday we saw 10 individuals murdered and 3 injured, and the target was Blacks, and it was purposeful, and it stemmed from racism. So yeah, just a welcome to everyone, and we'll start there, and Misha's going to give a little bit more information.
Yeah, thank you. Before we do that, we do like to just start with our opening statement that all land is Indigenous land, that we are fortunate to be able to be on the lands of the Indigenous people, that all races, genders, cultures, abilities, sexual orientations are valued here. We are here to hear you, accept you, and welcome you. That we want this to be a safe place where you can be brave. We can be brave. Having a lot of emotions right now. And I want to ask that we just have a moment of silence. I'm going to read the names that we know of so far from the shooting in Buffalo, New York, and then ask, and we have the name of one person on the injured list. We don't have all the information, but we'll be offering time of silence for not only mourning of George Floyd, which was, I believe, 9 minutes and 49 seconds or 20. See, I'm already drawing a blank now because I got distracted in this, but that's okay. So offering silence and love to the victims and their families, and to the Black community, for the Black people, for the pain and suffering that they've been enduring for hundreds of years that just doesn't seem to end. So the names are Deacon Hayward Patterson, Ruth Whitfield, 88, Celestine Cheney, 65, Roberta Drury, 32, Officer Aaron Salter, Pearl Young, 77, Catherine Massey, 73, and Zaire Goodman, 20, is on the injured list. So we just offer a moment of silence for these beautiful people who've lost their lives to hatred. Thank you. So if you're just joining us, we just read the names of the people who we know to have been killed in the Buffalo, New York hatred shooting. And we're taking time of silence for them and for the Black community. also, this being the month of the second, I heard someone say angelversary, but also murder of George Floyd. And of course, we've passed the angelversaries of Breonna Taylor, Trayvon Martin, so many others. And so we have altered the direction of tonight. And so while Jodi's going to read the purpose of the webinar, we still hold that purpose. And we also, we are choosing to use this evening to really open it up. So even those of you who are in attendance, if you'd like to be on the screen with us and share your thoughts, your concerns, your condolences to those victims, families, and the Black community, we welcome that, and just need to raise your virtual hand and we'll pull you on. Anybody in the Facebook group, we're happy to share your comments as well. But we'll have Jodi start by reading our general purpose of the webinar.
Misha created the webinar, and I was honored that she asked me to join her. And the webinar was created to engage in honest and authentic conversations about the long-time injustice of racism in America. During the webinars, we discussed systemic racism in an effort to dismantle white supremacy from the inside out. Our intention with these webinars is to participate in sustainable action and highlight the voices of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color, community members, giving them a safe space to be heard about their own experience, challenges, and hopes without the need to educate white people.
Do you want to say a little bit about yourself, sweetie?
Sure. I'm Jodi Lewis. I'm an attorney. I work for a nonprofit organization providing services for survivors of domestic and sexual violence. And I've done that work for quite a while. And one of the reasons that it's real important for me to be here and to be really educating myself more and more regarding systemic racism is as a privileged white educated woman. I've been silent for a long time and complacent in that silence and unawareness regarding many things that have gone on in this country and around me. And in that silence, that silence has hurt others, and it is racist to sit in that privilege and not speak. And I've had some other, what I would say is racist thoughts based on everything that comes down from our society, in particular regarding how Blacks are seen and viewed. So I'm here as wanting to hold space for the voices of others and speak out regarding the injustices that just continue in this country and globally.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here. And we're actually in different houses today because Jodi's on the East Coast right now for her sister's wedding. And I'm on the West Coast without her. So glad that you all are here, whether you're on Facebook or here attending the webinar itself. My name is Misha Safran, and I am an educator of 30 years, middle school, high school, community college. I grew up in Berkeley, Oakland, California, and have always had a diverse group of people in my life and around me, and have tried very hard to really identify, oh, wow, thank you for that trigger warning. Oh boy. If you can get us more information about that, I think we'll also look online. So I will come back to that. Thank you for the person in the attendance group. Yeah, I just felt my heart just completely land.
Yeah.
So angry. So I'm going to be real here, everybody. If you're watching on
Just
Facebook, I don't know why I didn't see this sooner. I was out trying to enjoy some time with my nieces today, but someone informed us that there has been a shooting at a California church. So Jodi, if you can pull that up, we'll
I'm doing it right now.
yeah, I'm just going to skip my introduction. I care. That's why I'm here. So I would like to pull up one of the articles that we had found that at least shared us with us some of the people who died in the shooting in Buffalo, New York. So I'm going to share my screen and just pay tribute to these people. Aaron Salter was the store security guard. He was a retired Buffalo police officer. He was a hero, according to Commissioner Joseph Gramaglia. Ruth Whitfield, 86. I just love her smile. She was one of the victims in the shooting. She was on her way to visiting her husband, who's in a nursing home, and stopped at the store to get something to eat. Pearl Young, 77, was killed shopping for groceries. While she was shopping for groceries, she loved singing, dancing, and being with family. She ran a food pantry in the Central Park neighborhood for 25 years, feeding people every Saturday. She was a mother, a grandmother, and a missionary. So sweet. I mean, you can see the love in people's faces. I don't understand the hatred. Catherine Macy, or Massey, I wish I knew how to pronounce the name, also killed while shopping. And her sister called her a beautiful soul. I mean, you can tell by looking at her, she's a beautiful soul. She used to write for the Buffalo News. Her family told a reporter from the station that she took care of everything and was amazing. Deacon Hayward Patterson, somebody from the sister station WKYC confirmed that he was killed. Patterson would often help drive people who needed transportation to the Jefferson Avenue store. Celeste Cheney, a granddaughter of Celestine Cheney, tells reporters that Cheney was also killed in the shooting, had 6 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. She was also a cancer survivor. And Zara Goodman is on the list of injuries. There was more information. We'll put these links in the chat. There's also an additional oh, thank you so much to enable the transcript. Thank you. I forgot to do that. Yeah, thank you so much. I so appreciate people in the chat, the attendants reminding us of things. Thank you. Appreciate that. So there were a couple other people who were not in those articles who I want to just mention really quickly, but not too quickly. I want to give them their attention. So here's another picture of Mr. Slater. And then we were also, we talked about Miss Whitfield, Roberta Drury. She was 32, had gone to the top supermarket to buy groceries to make dinner. She was very vibrant. She was always the center of attention, made the whole room smile and laugh. And I believe that, here's another picture of Miss Cheney, or Shaney. So I just like to offer, again, condolences and love to these victims and these families. So the shooting in California, I guess the motive is still unclear.
Yeah.
And there were, the oldest victim was 92 years old. I didn't see in this article how many people they've said were killed.
One person was killed and 5 others were wounded.
Okay.
In a Taiwanese church. Yeah, I agree. I think Misha already said that. One of the attendees put in the chat, just feeling depleted. And I hear that. I am feeling a lot of anger, sadness, and depletion as well. It just doesn't make sense why why this country, it just has permitted and allowed murders to continue to happen. And, it's amazing. I know when we've had guests on, every single guest we've had have had on since we started the webinar, since Misha started and I joined later. All the guests spoke of still having hope and holding on to that. And I find myself right now wondering how, trying to find that hope and wondering where that is when every time there seems like there's action and movement, we then see more murders happen. And, and it's been a signature of this country in many ways. I hate to say it that way, but every time there's been any progress by Blacks, or we white individuals have destroyed that purposely. You look at Tulsa massacres, any area you look at, we have done stuff to stop that progress. And there was such a movement that was happening, or appeared to be happening, right after George Floyd was murdered. And then we have had the deadliest shooting of Blacks in a long time.
I think it's important for people who are listening who may get defensive when Jodi says we, white people. And it's important to know that if you are a white person and you are feeling defensive, to look and just acknowledge that white people have privilege. And you personally, per se, may not be a bad person, but we are all a part of a system that is based on heteronormative white male society, ruling the society. And so it's our responsibility, and I still haven't identified, because I come from a background that has also been severely beaten down, depleted as a Jewish heritage. And yet some Jewish people identify as white. There is a privilege in the color of our skin. The lighter the tone, the more privilege there is. The less likely you're going to get pulled over when speeding and being treated like crap. The more likely your name is a simple Anglo-Saxon name, you will get an interview for a job. The more likely that you have been in a culture where you are conforming to that heteronormative male, white male being, the less likely you will be the less likely your power and your privilege will be taken from you. And so it's very important, the lighter our skin, to not walk in defensiveness, to not walk in fear, to identify how can we incorporate love and equity and access within our systems, within our communities, to support and guide mental health, to offer safe spaces. I mean, it's up to each and every one of us, the lighter our skin is, to talk about it, to have the conversations, to work towards improvements. If you have money, use the money to educate. A lot of anger and hatred comes from fear. It started way back when white men were so afraid the strong Black man would take their wives, would take their jobs. I mean, it's jealousy, it's fear. And we need to diffuse that and find a way. And I'm just such an idealist. It drives me crazy because I can't have the world the way I want it. But if each person were to take a moment and in their own fear and really ask the question, what is the threat? Really? Really, what is the threat? Why do I need to spend my days in fear and turn that into hatred? And instead, just embrace another human being that has the same blood inside. Just, yeah.
Yeah. I think so many people are feeling so much, and I want all those who might listen at some point or listening now to know that if you are a member of the Black, Indigenous, or people of color community, we are by your side and are sending our love to you at this time when, once again, you're being bombarded with news of more community members being murdered, and or perhaps they're even your family member, your friend, your neighbor, or the wider community that you know. And to know that, yeah, we are here, and that though we will never walk in your shoes, we are doing what we can to be allies and to be behind you in support. Not in front of you, not above you, but allowing you your space and us to just be there to hold the pain, the anger, the frustration. You know, in the midst of, I just, my mind's in so many different places, particularly hearing the news that there was another shooting that has happened. And in the midst of this all happening, with everything going on with the attack on trans youth and abortion rights, and I don't see how we can't think all this stuff's not connected, because it's affecting Blacks, Indigenous, people of color the most, low income individuals the most. It's based in racism and white supremacy, and it's just perpetuating hatred on so many different levels. At what point do we stop hatred and start seeing each other as individuals? Misha was saying, and all our panelists that we've had have consistently talked about connection. When we actually get to know people and we connect with people, we see them for who they are. We accept their similarities, we accept their differences, and we love them as they are instead of this continued hatred that is perpetuating over and over again. The shooter was 18. What is wrong with our country that someone at 18 is picking up a gun, purposely going into a Black neighborhood and opening fire? When are we as a country going to see us all as individuals and love each other and stop this senselessness, which is all again based in white supremacy?
One of the things that Jodi and I have done for these webinars is to provide resources. So I'll put them in the chat for our attendees, and if Jodi, you want to put them in the Facebook.
Yeah.
This is the first one that is basically it's resources for being learned allies, and this is a Google document that will share with you ways for being learned allies, but also active allies. It's got Black-owned bookstores, it's got reading lists, it's got films and documentaries, podcasts, presentations, videos, tests like implicit bias, Facebook presence, websites and other content, charity donations, places you can support. So it's quite an extensive list that we created. And then we have another one that was shared with us, which is called Scaffolding Resources. And we did not create this, we've just been sharing it, which also offers a tremendous number of resources. This was a document created by Anna Stemborski and Nikki Zimmerman, as well as Bailey Gregory. And that's a working document for scaffolding anti-racism resources. And their goal was to facilitate growth for white folks to become allies and eventually accomplices for anti-racist work. And so they've compiled the resources in an attempt to make them more accessible. The last update was actually June of 2020, but they're still very needed, these resources. There are also some comments like, I don't see color, and talking about race brings disunity. And so these beliefs that are really, it's important to educate ourselves. People have a belief that racism is caused by talking about race, or believe that you aren't racist if you don't purposely or consciously act in racist ways. So there are different activities and podcasts that can support, how do you feel you are perceiving things. There's some activities on disintegration, reintegration, pseudo-independence, immersion. This is just a fabulous document. There are activities regarding autonomy, as well as several Instagram accounts that you can follow. And then there are some people who are, for those who want a better anti-racist in their faith traditions. There are some Christian resources. There's Muslim, there are Jewish resources, and then there are some great books that are suggested in both of the documents. And there's also anti-racist education, like an educator self-questionnaire rubric, student self-questionnaire, and again, some other books for youth. So there's a book written by Ibrahim Kendi, Anti-Racist Baby. This book is Anti-Racist by Tiffany Jewell. Lots of resources here. Hopefully that these can be useful to you and share them with others. And then we have a workbook by DR Works that we can share with you as well, which is helpful. Supportive circles, that's a really good question. So what about supportive circles? Counseling support as racism promotes mental health issues? Absolutely. I've definitely had my share of anxiety and depression over all of this, and I am not, I'm indirectly impacted. So as far as there are some circles, trying to think though, if they are with regards to counseling support. I'll get back to you on that. The person in the chat that commented that. What I'll do is I'll give you my email address and see if I can find something and follow up with you. You might have to email me first so that I don't end up in your spam. And for those of you who are on Facebook, I'll also put, before I move to the Facebook people, I'll put Jodi's email in there as well. Those of you on Facebook, if you're also interested in knowing more about supportive circles, counseling support as racism is promoting mental health issues, or not necessarily, it's not promoting it, it's evoking it, it's stimulating mental health issues and crises. And if anybody on Facebook knows of these resources, that would be also a wonderful thing for you to share with us. So if you are watching this and have resources that you can provide, we'd like to be able to get that to our viewers as well. This is a really painful time. What I can say as a relationship coach, one of the things that I do with my clients is to find a way for each of us to kind of get centered in our own bodies. We can use tapping. We can use positive affirmations. And to be frank, we can cry and we can scream. I mean, it's important to feel the feelings. And I know sometimes, especially if we're not a member of BIPOC, it can be anxiety provoking because like, well, what right do I have to cry and be angry? But one of the best pieces of advice I got from a colleague, Caress Fitch, she's actually I think Caress uses they, them pronouns, but was that I need to take care of myself to be a good ally, to be a helpful ally. And if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm no good to anybody. And Caress said, we need you to take care of yourself. So getting the support you need, and taking care of yourself without guilt or shame, knowing that you're taking care of yourself so you can take the next step in supporting the challenges that we face right now with racism. So identifying for you in this crisis, how can you best take care of yourself so you can support bringing love into the community, making a difference, helping change gun laws, educating people on what hatred really is and why does it really need to be here, and not trying to convince people. I want to kind of take back what I just said, but just like to acknowledge where is the fear and the hatred coming from. But we can't do any of that if we're not taking care of ourselves, if we're depleted, right? And the beautiful thing about this world is that while you're taking a break to take care of yourself, there's somebody who's just been revved up with their energy and they can move forward, right? So if we all march forward depleted, we have very little effect, very little impact. But because we're all coming in and out and in and out, there's going to be somebody who can take the load while you're re-energizing, right? And then that person might have to kind of they're getting depleted and they kind of have to figure themselves out. And then as they come back up for air, then you can take care of yourself. So there's always going to be somebody who can be helping as there's somebody who needs to take care of themselves, right? We have to. Caress made that very clear to me. Misha, you've got to get your rest. You've got to take care of yourself. We need strong, well-fed, well-slept allies.
There are things, though, I mean, it's not specific to counseling and mental health. I know a lot of workplaces anymore are giving opportunities for employees to have affinity groups. So there are spaces for affinity groups for those who identify as white, affinity groups for those who identify as BIPOC, to be able to have a space to talk about what's going on. And their different goals or purposes. There's also the potential for people to create their own kind of circle where they can talk about what's going on in that piece. So there's opportunities like that. There's even some places have even created kind of a rage space where people get in and just get to state your rage for a little bit, and have opportunity for people to be there with you. All important things right now on that front. Yeah. And then some other resources. There's great podcasts out there. I don't know if they're on the list. There's some I've discovered more recently. NPR Code Switch has been around a while, but they've started on Code Switch. They highlighted some of their other ones, School Colors, which is really fascinating, looking at the educational system and segregation and what has happened even when schools have had tried to put in place diversity plans. On Our Watch is looking at California now, because a law that was put in place, you can get more access to police records and interviews when there's been any type of misconduct. So they've done investigating reporting around that. And then not with NPR, but with Kimberly Crenshaw is Intersectionality Matters, through the African American Policy Forum, and some really profound podcasts looking at intersectionality and what that means on a variety of topics that have impacted Blacks. So there's just tons of resources out there. Sorry, I jumped a little there just to go back because we were talking about resources.
What's the name? I'm putting the Code Switch on the spreadsheet, on the document. What's the name of the one you said from Code Switch that you particularly?
School Colors.
Okay.
And then there's also On Our Watch.
Okay.
And then through the African American Policy Forum is Intersectionality Matters.
Yeah, that one's on the sheet already. So NPR is School Colors and On Our Watch.
Yes, and I learned about both of them through Code Switch did a little piece on both of them. So yeah.
Oh, okay. So School Colors and On Our Watch are actually two separate podcasts.
I believe so, because they came through on Code Switch, but they were their own things that have started.
Okay, thank you.
But they're all through NPR.
They're all through NPR. Okay.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I'm just adding it to the list. And I know that you and I have talked about them, but I did not add them to the list. So they're on there now. And I'll get the links to put that on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering if anybody has any questions or wanting to, yeah.
Questions, comments, wanting to share where you're at.
Yeah, emotions.
Yeah, I think neither Misha and I were feeling well prior to the webinar. And on one hand, right, it could have been easy to cancel it. We didn't have a panelist tonight. We still wanted to come on and do something. And it would have been easy to say, you know what, neither one of us is feeling well. We don't have a panelist tonight. Let's just cancel it. And
That would have been a privilege, right?
right. I was just going to say that would have been privilege, right? To be able to, no, I don't want to do it. And
I don't want to sit in the uncomfortable.
I don't want to sit in the uncomfortable. I don't want to, I'm feeling a lot myself. I don't want to go on. I don't want to talk. And I think, you know, I point that out because so often many of us can use our privilege and not have to think about some certain things, or not have to sit in uncomfortableness, or not have to sit in uncomfortableness for long, right? We hear about the shooting, then we start doing something else. So it was important for us to come on and just recognize and hold space for those that were murdered, and hold space for Blacks who once again witnessed brothers and sisters being murdered, to provide resources, to talk about how we're angry and sad as well, and just to be present. We invite everyone, even when you're uncomfortable, to speak up if you see racism or injustice or microaggression, whatever it may be, to connect with your neighbor, connect with the person walking down the street, connect with the person on the bus, connect with someone who doesn't look like you, someone who's not from the same area as you are.
And not
Pause.
to assume the worst of them.
Yeah.
I mean, even my son the other day, and his girlfriend is lighter skinned but not white. They were stopped by this random lady asking them why they're hanging out by the car at night when it's cold. Because her assumption was nobody, unless they're doing something wrong, should be standing by their car at night when it's cold. I mean, it was just ridiculous. The assumption, to assume good intent in people, rather than assuming, they're up to no good. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
No, I agree. It's that, let's pause, and take in things before we just react or assume or judge or be critical. Our privilege and sitting in it. Yeah. How many lives have we saved if people paused? People saw each other for who they were instead of assuming the worst. Or assuming someone is because the media has made Black males out to be criminals and aggressive, even though you don't even know the person and you're acting towards them like they are a criminal or they are aggressive because they're Black males, because that's what has been said. So were you going to say something?
Yeah, I'm thinking of sharing my screen and just playing the 3-minute video where they're going through some of the information about the victims from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Just so that we can kind of get to know them a little bit, despite their, now absence. So I will pull that up. And can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tonight, we're also learning about another victim.
Can you hear the volume when I played it?
Yes.
Okay.
Her name, Pearl Young, 77 years old, a grandmother who ran a food pantry in the Central Park neighborhood for about 25 years. She made sure that her neighbors were going to be fed, that their stomachs were going to be full every single weekend. Madison Carter shares her story.
Pearl Young wasn't a Buffalo native, but when she arrived here nearly 50 years ago, she already had the heart of a Buffalonian.
That's the type of person she was. She's always baking cookies, baking cakes, doing stuff like that, cooking spaghetti, whatever she could do for people, she did that.
Some might call her a member of the Good Samaritan Church in Cheektowaga, but most would call her the heart of the congregation. She led Sunday school there for decades.
She will always have food for us for Sunday school. She will always have our books. I mean, when we came downstairs, she was always happy to see us. She was ready to teach us. She was a nice person.
Sunday school started at 8 o'clock. I would get there at like 6:45 Sunday morning because she always had a honey bun for me, and me and her would have coffee. And this is the honest to God truth.
Around here, a smile is synonymous with the name Pearl.
All my memories are the same, like even as an adult and as a kid. She's just, every time you see her, she was just happy. She was happy to see you.
It was her spirit, how she would, every time we came in, it was giving her a hug that brought us out of our day. It would bring a smile to her face if we gave her a hug. It was her.
It was that smile her family is now forced to remember through photos. Her best friend and sister-in-law was the last to see it Saturday afternoon when she dropped Pearl off at the supermarket on Jefferson.
And left her there because she said, no, I just feel like I want to walk, and I'll take just a few items and I'll walk home. And from there, last time you seen her, because I know she's kind of devastated, feeling like that if I hadn't dropped her off, I try to imagine how she feels.
No one can quite put into words yet what it means to not have Pearl's smile, her singing, her dancing, or her love of God and people to light up this world anymore.
When she walked in, her voice.
Just her in general. It's not going to be the same without her.
We're going to miss her. We're going to miss her so much.
Madison Carter, Channel 2 News.
Thank you, Madison. Tops released a statement this afternoon saying that the store on Jefferson will remain closed until further notice, but knowing how important that location is to the community, they will offer a free shuttle to a nearby Tops in the meantime. Starting tomorrow,
I can't get back to my Zoom screen. Jodi, can you please talk?
You're on.
Okay. Yeah, I know I couldn't.
Yeah. Okay. I think there's a little loss of words for me. So clear that she was vibrant, loved, loving, that she gave back to the community, and what a loss. And to think, I think something that struck me, not only how many lives she touched, but that the shooting took place in a space that was meant to be safe, as all these have happened. But it sounds like, based on the story, that this grocery store was essential to the community and a place where everyone went, or a lot of people went. And once again, that's been taken away from Blacks in the community. Because now every time they walk into that store, it also holds the memory of a mass murder where loved ones from the community were murdered. that continuous process where, whether it be sacred lands or sacred spaces, families ripped apart, that hatred and white supremacy just continues to take and take and take. And how much are we going to take? How many times do Black lives have to suffer and Indigenous lives have to suffer and people of color have to suffer? Yeah.
Yeah, I think those of you who are watching in Facebook or on YouTube, those of you who are here in the webinar attendance list, if you know, when we hold these webinars, the purpose has been to listen to the experiences of a friend, someone in our community, close to us, or who we've met through someone else. Because what we've discovered is that most people of color are not untouched. Like, most people of color have had experiences time and time again with regards to racism and hatred. And even I, as a woman and as a Jewish woman, have had experiences. In fact, right after 9/11, I was not allowed to bring my children to eat at a particular restaurant locally, and they escorted me out of the restaurant. They never specifically said why, but I wasn't able to remain. And I believe it was because they perceived me as a terrorist. And it was really painful. And so something to consider, I'm only one person, so my boycotting them may or may not have made any impact at all, but I certainly shared it with people. Like, this is not a place that I would love, I'd love for you to stop supporting them. And I use my voice. And so we can use our voice to shrink attention and business towards certain certain places. And we can also use our voice and our tools and strategies to bring up and love up the people who are being denied the access and resources and as a result of hate. And yeah, I'm appreciating what's being put into our chat regarding the Prime Minister of New Zealand and how first and last mass shooting, because it was like no more access to guns to the public, right? Jacinda Ardern really has implemented so many radical changes. And does that mean racism doesn't exist anymore? No. But we have to deal with it differently in that country, right? And so I think for me, and maybe Jodi, you have a different one, but we didn't actually talk about this tonight. What I would like to do is invite people who are watching to reach out to good friends, not just random acquaintances right now, but good friends, and just let them know you read and saw the shooting in Buffalo, New York, and as it was publicized as a hate crime, a racist hate crime, that you're thinking about them, and send some love their way. Ask them how they're doing. It makes more sense to do it with those who are closer to you. If you haven't had any kind of connection with someone to kind of randomly put out there, may feel, not thinking of the right word. This is what we've been learning from people in our circles around who to reach out to and who not to reach out to, and patronizing, that's the word I'm thinking. So with regards to people people of color, Black people, African-American people, however they identify, or everyone identifies differently, to really, let them know this is what I know to be true, and I'm thinking about you. How are you doing? So that's my first piece of invitation for action. My second piece of invitation for action is to identify one thing you can do to, whether it be postcard writing, whether it be supporting an organization, whether it be reading a book or listening to a podcast, to educate yourself or to support directly or indirectly an organization that is, its purpose is to dismantle white supremacy. Obviously, watching this and being here is one step, but I really invite, baby steps, small steps, sustainable steps, right? You have something you'd like to add, Jodi?
Those are great. I think the only one, which is a continuance one, is participate in voting, whether it be at the, not whether, at all levels, participate in voting, local, state, national, and obviously there's primaries coming up, there's different elections coming up, and there'll be major elections coming up. But yeah, voting is important regarding looking at candidates, looking at what candidates stand for, and voting for candidates that aren't based in white supremacist ideology.
Yeah. So with that, we are coming to the close of our webinar this evening. I will put in the chat, and Jodi will follow with it in Facebook. If you are a member, a BIPOC member, and you would like to be a panelist for our webinars in the future, we would love to have you. We do not take your time for granted. Our webinar panelists are paid. Or if you prefer, we promote your business through marketing and through this platform, or we donate the amount we would pay you to a charity of your choice. And the other thing is that if you would like to attend future webinars, but you came to us through Eventbrite, you can actually register directly through our Zoom registration. And I've put that in the chat, so you don't have to go through Eventbrite. And I think, I think that if you felt like you were given a little bit of space today to feel your feelings, we just want to invite you to give some space to, pass it on, pass it forward. See if you can give someone space. Yeah.
So I did message Misha privately because I didn't want to put her on the spot, but she has a song that she wrote. She's an amazing singer-songwriter. She has a song she wrote after George Floyd was murdered, and I did ask her if she'd be willing to sing it tonight to end us with, and she said yes. So yay, thank you. It's a really powerful song, and I think it's fitting to end tonight on that. It's all you.
All right, well, I'm looking for my lyrics because they're not here with me in this room, so let me find it. But this song is called I Broke My Silence. And I'm going to sing it a cappella because that's the way Jodi likes it better. I broke my silence here today. Yeah. There's too much to say and not enough. My brothers and my sisters are crying in pain, dying by white hands like it's a game. I broke my silence here today. No, no, this is wrong. It is not okay. Your bodies, hearts, and lives are not to be their toys for these mean and stupid grown-ass boys. Do I see it? Not like you. Do I hear it? Not like you. Do I feel it? Not like you. I broke my silence here today. Yeah. I stand up, I shout and chant, then I cry. And while I like to think that's working, I just see white supremacy smirking. I broke my silence here today. Yeah. I can't want you to live, and so I pray. Your child's blood makes me shudder. Your mother's wails are like no other. Do I see it? Not like you. Do I hear it? Not like you. Do I feel it? Not like you. I'm not a shero, no, don't claim to be, but I care about our community. What can I do? How does it end? More than my words, I'd like to lend. Watching like a slow motion silent film, one senseless death after another, feeling so helpless and fearful too, but not like you. Worry for my children and my friends, but not the way you do, not the way you do. Do I see it? Not like you. Do I hear it? Not like you. Do I feel it? Not like you. Break your silence today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Love to all. Bye-bye.